I'm a Marie Curie International Outgoing Fellow. So I've spent the last 2 years at MIT in Cambridge in the US, and now I've just returned to NUI Maynooth to carry out my third and final year of the fellowship. Things have been, interesting, just it's a little bit different, I guess. I've only been away for 2 years, but it has been a change. So I've had to try and find accommodation and just getting set back and kind of settle back into the university again and the way of life at Maynooth. I've always loved to travel, and I guess that's really, when I started my PhD, it was a conversation I had with my professor that I wanted to travel and do some research, and she was fully supportive of that idea. So in my second year, we actually applied for an Australian research fellowship, which I was successful in obtaining. And I did some research during my PhD in Australia. And from then on, I always felt that I had such a great experience from that I wanted to further travel again. The advantages of being a mobile researcher are really setting up your networks and collaborations, and also learning new techniques. When I went to Australia, I learned a new technique within the field of electrospinning, and it was a great experience for me. And I actually brought that experience to MIT, and I now use that technique there, and now I'm going to set it up in Maynooth. So you can learn new techniques, new collaborations, and all in all, just learn new cultures. My experience culturally has been interesting. I guess language barrier hasn't been an issue as such for me, but apart from that, it's just kind of moving to new cities, getting yourself set up, and getting used to the way other people, I suppose, live. In the US, it's interesting because everything is so fast-paced and quite stressful, and Australia is a little bit more like Ireland, so it had its the differences. My initial experience at MIT was actually very good. They offer a welcome package to all new students and new postdoctoral fellows coming from outside of the US. And it helps you set up how to, find somewhere to live, tax purposes, even childcare, stuff like that for people who have children. And that was a very good experience for us because, it is daunting going to a new city and not knowing anything. So that was very helpful. The main disadvantage for me personally, moving to the US, was the fact that I left my fiance and obviously my family behind. At the time, there was kind of visa issues. We weren't married, so they won't allow him to come with me. So I've spoken to the European Commission about that, and they're looking into a change in that, let's say. But yeah, personally, was more the disadvantages rather than academically. After graduating from my PhD in 2009, I applied for both industry and academic positions, and I was successful in obtaining a job in analog devices in Limerick. It was a really great experience, and I was very happy there. And I did just over a year there down in Limerick, during which I was actually awarded the Marie Curie Fellowship, which I accepted, and then transitioned from industry back into academia and moving to the US. It was a difficult decision to leave industry. I was doing very well in the research position that I had, and I was settling well into the company. But when I was awarded the Marie Curie, it was also a difficult decision to decline that, because not everybody like me, I suppose, gets an opportunity to go to MIT and do some research with, the most world-renowned scientists. The Marie Curie Fellowship is a European-based funding that allows researchers to go abroad, learn some key technical skills, and then return to Europe to train and, I suppose, teach other people what you've learned when you go abroad. Honestly, when I applied, I never thought I'd actually get it because it's quite prestigious. But I suppose my name of the game is if you're not in, you can't win. I just spent the last 2 years in the world-renowned Robert Langer Lab, and really Marie Curie gave me that opportunity. Without it, I probably wouldn't have been able to, do something like that. I think the experience did match my expectations. MIT is, I suppose, world-renowned, obviously, but it's just an amazing place with amazing people. It is a very tough environment, but it's a great learning curve. The main difference between the US and Ireland is the lab that I went to in the US had 110 postdoctoral fellows, which is really unheard of in the field. But there's good advantage in the fact that you have biologists, chemists, physicists, and you always have someone there who will be able to answer your question or help you. The disadvantage is probably not as much supervision as you would get in a regular lab. Now I'm back at NUI Maynooth and I'm the only postdoc in the lab. So that's again, the biggest difference that I found between the US and Ireland. I think the main improvement I'd like to see with the Marie Curie is just the health insurance issue being addressed. As a fellow, our fellowships are managed here in the European country and we pay our PRSI and social insurance. Then we go to the US and we pay high-priced health insurance. So I think that's what I'd like to see addressed. I think the difficulties that face me now in planning my career is I suppose, finding a job and figuring out, where I'm going to go and what's the next step. I think that's a difference in the US. The opportunities are there. A lot of my fellow colleagues are applying for academic positions and starting up their own labs because the opportunities are available to them. Here it's a little bit more difficult. There's not really hiring in the universities, so you have to go and try and apply for fellowships and grants. I think the main challenges moving forward for my career is, the fact that the grants are difficult to get, and you have to have a certain caliber, in your research area to apply for the grants. So you have to have a certain H index, so you have to have certain publications, citations. And without the grants, you can't really achieve that. So it's a catch-22 really going forward for someone like me who's young and has travelled, been mobile, but still, wants to stay in Ireland to do some research. So it's going to be difficult going forward.